Hi everyone, welcome to my today's games. I am Trey and I'm very passionate about tabletops and I am learning to be a better GM, a better player, and a better person, and I'm excited to share with you some of the cool stuff that I've been learning. Today I want to talk about a central mechanic in the game that I have mentioned before, Shadow of the Demon Lord, that I just love, and also how I'm planning on using it in my D&D game. The mechanic is called Banes and Boons. This is not a video on how to play the game, so if you're looking for instructions, you won't find that here. To give you just a basic overview, it's a pretty basic D20 with DCs and modifiers kind of thing, although it's how those modifiers are approached through Banes and Boons that really stands out to me that I want to talk about here. To give you a brief summary of the game, Shadow of the Demon Lord is made by Schwab Entertainment Group. Dark Fantasy D20 game. Let me read the description from the website. Enter a world on the brink of annihilation, its lands torn asunder by war, plague, and ancient horrors. Earth, the world of Shadow of the Demon Lord, is one of many imperiled by the shadowy menace lurking without, and in this game you can play through its final days as embattled survivors fighting against what to many seems to be an inevitable end. Create characters that confront the hordes of demons spilling into the void and play through exciting stories steeped in horror and violence. Sometimes the world needs heroes, but in the desperation of these last days, the world will take anyone it can get. Heroes, blackguards, madmen, and whoever else is willing to stand against the coming darkness. Will you fight the demons, or will you burn it all down and dance among the ashes? Who will you become when the world dies? Shadow of the Demon Lord opens the door to an imaginary world held in the grip of a cosmic destroyer. Enter a land steeped in the chaos and madness unleashed by the end times, with whole realms overrun by howling herds of beastmen, warped spirits freed from the underworld, and unspeakable horrors stirred awakened by the Demon Lord's imminent arrival. So, environmentally, thematically, it's very dark, it's pretty bleak. If you were looking for something more upbeat, this definitely isn't. This probably isn't. It definitely isn't. That being said, if dark fantasy is your thing, this is a super great game. Really high level system is kind of OSRE. Dice used are D20 and D6s. Apart from Banes and Boons, the part that I really love about Demon Lord is the character generation. Character generation is you pick your race, you pick your class, and eventually class abilities, but you basically roll on tables for everything else. And that's, how it's supposed to be done in, or how they say that you can do it in D&D and stuff as well, but, the tables in this game are compelling enough that you want to roll on them. They're not just, some boring crap. What you end up with is a character that you probably would not have drawn up yourself. Mechanically, it's what you want, but narratively, especially for more experienced RP and players, you end up with a character, like I said, that you probably wouldn't have drawn up yourself, and it really flexes those RP muscles. Age, personality traits, wealth, quirks, all that stuff can be gotten from rolling on tables. If you're particularly wanting a specific character and background, of course, this randomness isn't really fun for you, doesn't really work for you in creating a character. You don't have to engage with it. And certainly you might find you have a different approach for one-shots and short games where, a randomized character is fun for you to play for that short period. But for a longer game, for a campaign, perhaps you want to be a little bit more intentional about certain character choices. And that might be something you decide to do. So back to gameplay, you roll a d20 to attempt an activity whose outcome is uncertain. Just like standard like D&D kind of thing. Die roll determines whether the attempt was a success or a failure. The DC for basically all normal tasks is 13. So you can just rule that a score of 13 or higher automatically grants a success on most tasks related to that attribute. So it makes it pretty easy to run as well. Here's where Banes Boons start to come in. Boons improve your d20 die rolls. They are positive modifiers. A boon is basically what exists within your character's backstory and your character's existence to make them particularly good at this task or better than average at this task. So let's say you have a cleric fighting a bunch of undead. You can say, well, since I'm a cleric, I have a particular hatred towards this kind of undead. I fought them before, so I know exactly where to hit them to get the most damage. And your GM, that's a boon. I would give a boon for that. Basically, any positive circumstance that exists or that you can sort of narratively explain gets you a boon. This is kind of part of why I like the randomized character generation, because it makes you stretch your RP muscles in general, but it also makes you need to be mechanically creative, like how do you work grave digging as a past profession into a positive circumstance for fighting undead so you can get another boon. It's just fun little things to think about. So you can have multiple boons applied to a given roll. For each boon, you roll a d6, and the highest number rolled on the boon gets added to your d20 rolls. So ideally, you want to get as many boons as you can, so you have like the highest probability of getting a 6 or as close to 6 as possible that you can add to your d20 roll. So, for example, if you make a d20 roll with 3 boons, you would roll 3d6, and let's say you get a 1, 4, and a 6 on those dice. The 6 is the highest number, so you add that to your d20 roll. So boons are like the modifiers almost that you would have in older editions of D&D, where you'd get like a +1 for using specific tools or like whatever to help you achieve a task. Although the difference is that instead of like a physical thing that you're using, like a piece of resource, you are figuring out a narrative element from your character's background and existence to give you a mechanical benefit. I'm going to say it again because that's what makes me love this. You are figuring out a narrative element that gives you a mechanical benefit. The flip side to boons is Banes. Banes is typically where the GM just, throws in the mix to make things a little bit more difficult, to hinder the d20 dice roll. Just like it's the players, the onus is on the players to come up with boons, the onus is on the GM to come up with the Banes. So, just like boons, one or more Banes might apply to a roll. So, using that same cleric example we used, I could say as the GM, since you are very visibly a cleric, the undead are going to key into you specifically, so you're going to be kind of swarmed. That's a Bane. Or, because you've fought them before, you are sort of a known entity to them, and they're keen to take you down specifically. That's another Bane. So for each Bane, you roll a d6 and then you subtract the highest number on all the Bane dice from your d20 roll. So if you make a d20 with 4 Banes, you would roll 4d6. Say you got, 1, 3, 4, and 5 on those dice. Since 5 is the highest number, you subtract 5 from your d20 roll. Boons and Banes just straight cancel each other out. So in this example, if you have 4 Banes but only 3 Boons, you roll with 1 Bane. Like, that's what you end up rolling with. If you have 2 Boons and 1 Bane, to apply to a particular role, you end up with 1 Boon. So 1 Bane cancels out 1 Boon. And 1 Boon cancels out 1 Bane. Similarly, if you have 2 Boons, 2 Banes, they just cancel everything out and you just make a straight d20 roll. So it's really interesting approach to modifiers, which I super dig. But the thing I found a little challenging was keeping track of how many Banes and Boons to apply to a role. When you are talking with that specific player, it's important that they will make a note and sort of help you keep track, and you can do that back and forth. The other thing is that you need to make sure you have access to your players' character sheets, because that's the way you sort of can do you can do more Banes. Like, if you prefer to run a slightly more brutal game, I would say that you should have your players' character sheets in front of you so that you can have character-specific Banes that you can kind of look at their sheet and be like, oh, well, you used to be a gravedigger, because you have an innate fear of undead because, like, you've seen them rise from the ground before. So every instinct in you is telling you to run away. So that's a Bane. But I would know if someone was Great Vigor if I didn't see it on the character sheet. So if you want to be like a more brutal GM, like, that's something you should have. Otherwise, you can come up with other Banes however you want. The other thing is that some GMs and players don't like this kind of back and forth of deciding what your modifiers should be in the moment. If you prefer a much more prescriptive approach of, like, every time I do this action, I have this modifier applied to it. Every time I do this other action, I have this modifier applied to it. And it's consistent and it's the same every time. If you prefer to play that way, this is not a mechanic that will work for you. This is fun if you like to kind of come up with narrative and RP reasons and have that bit of discussion at the table, a little bit back and forth with your GM, and that style of play is more fun for you. If you prefer a more traditional game with consistent and fixed modifiers, I'm not sure this will work well. Actually, I'm pretty certain it won't work well. So I do want to start using this in my D&D game, where if a PC can narratively identify a reason, like from the backstory or from something they know exists in the world, for a reason they might be particularly good at something, I think I'm gonna give them like a +1 to the roll or something. I think it'll be fun to try it and see how it goes, especially for my players who are familiar with the older editions of D&D. I mean, they're heroes, and I'm always looking for more ways to make them feel badass. I feel like this could really help with that, to show off their competency and their power, and sort of like harken back to like where they came from and that kind of thing. And so it has a narrative element, but ultimately a mechanical impact. So yeah, I'm excited to try it. Anyway, that's all I have for now. If you like this video but you don't like notifications and subscriptions, I put stuff out every Wednesday and every other Saturday, and I have a backlog of stuff as well. I've also started coming out with an audio-only version because I know that works better for some folks. Like if the YouTube app is not great for you or whatever. All my links are in the description. Otherwise, that's all I have. Thank you for hanging out. Come and see me again soon. Bye.